A religion teacher was talking to his class of 10-year-olds about the presence of God in their everyday life. He asked them if God was everywhere, and they correctly answered yes. And in an effort to make the matter closer to home, to their personal lives, he named some actual situations. Is God in your church? And they said yes. Is God in your home? And they said yes. Is God on the street? Yes. Is God on the playground? Yes. Is God in the city prison? And they got quiet for a moment, and that one had them stumped. And finally, a boy came up with a pretty good answer. He said, yes, God is there, but sometimes those fellows forget it. I think that's what's going on in our parable today. That was the man's trouble, the rich man, wasn't it? God was in his life, but he didn't really know it. God was in his fruits. God was in his grains. God was in his fields. God was in all his goods. God was everywhere except in his gratitude. And because of that, Jesus calls him a fool. I think Jesus called him a fool for 3 reasons. 1, he called him a fool because he forgot about God. Number 2, he called him a fool because he forgot about others. And finally, he called him a fool because he forgot that one day he was going to die. Let's look at those 3 things. He called him a fool first because he forgot about God. I'm reminded of the story of the guy driving in a downtown area of a major city. He can't find a parking place. He has a job interview in just a little bit of time, and it's getting close, so he begins to pray, God, please help me find a parking place. He keeps driving, and he continues his prayer, God, if you help me find a parking place, I'll go to church every Sunday. And he keeps praying, God, if you help me find a parking place, I'll tithe every week when I get this new job. And at that exact moment he prayed that prayer, as he was driving in front of the building where the job interview was, a parking place opened up. A lady pulled out right in front of that building, and the man says, never mind, God, I found one myself. Sometimes we forget about God. We don't do it in over-the-top ways. We just forget to pray one day, and then it's 2, and then it's a week. Or we forget to talk to others about God. Or we miss a Mass one Sunday, and not all the time, but we start missing more than we used to. Jesus calls the rich man a fool because he forgot about God. He also calls him a fool because he forgot about others. Remember the story. These are the words of the rich man. This is what I will do. I shall tear down my barns and build bigger ones. There I shall store all my grain and other goods. Then I will have great things stored up for me for many years. You see that? It was all about himself. Nothing about anyone else. Not once did he think about what he could do for others, how he could share what he had with them. Most of us in this church are blessed, some of us abundantly. Whether our blessings are abundant or our blessings are small, do we share what we have with others? Sam Foss, a writer and traveler, discovered a little rustic house in New England, situated at the top of a hill. A signpost read, "Help yourself to a cool drink." Nearby, he found a spring of ice-cold water. An old-fashioned gourd dipper was hanging above the spring, and on the bench was a basket of summer apples, along with another sign inviting passerbyers to help themselves. Foss was a little bit curious about what kind of people would show such hospitality to strangers, and so he went to the door and knocked. An elderly couple answered the door, and Foss asked them about the well and about the apples. They said, "We don't have much money, but this little plot of land has given us more than enough to eat and more apples than we could possibly use ourselves. We're too poor to give money to charity," said the husband, "but we thought this would be a good way to do something for the nice folks who pass by." The rich man in our story forgot about God. He also forgot about others. And finally, he forgot he was going to die. With Father Jeremy here, I figure I ought to quote the rule of St. Benedict at least once. The rule of St. Benedict says, "Remember to keep death before your eyes daily." I must admit, as I get older, that's a little bit easier to do. But it's a wise thing to do for all of us, regardless of our age. Robert Fulghum is a best-selling author. His best-known book is titled all I really needed to know I learned in kindergarten. More than 15 million copies of that book are in print. And as a result of that, he's done very well financially. He said it's hard for him to guard against greed. And so one year, as he did his book tour, he used it to raise $670,000 for a number of good causes. And he said this, "I don't think I should be given extra credit for doing that. I think you should think ill of me if I didn't do that." But here's the connection. Fulgham also makes a point to talk often about death. Death doesn't scare him. In fact, in one of his books is a picture of a grave, his own, that he's already picked out and that he likes to visit. It reminds him that he is laying up treasures for himself, not for here, but for in heaven. When Fulgham sees the grave, he says to himself, "Don't get lost here, know where you are going." I don't know if he learned that in kindergarten or not. My guess is he learned it from today's gospel. So, a pretty safe way to handle your resources: don't forget about God. It all came from him. Don't forget about others. Share what you have. Keep death daily before your eyes. Thank you to St. Benedict. And while I'm at it, thank you, Father Jeremy, for your 50 years of priestly service.
Thank you.